Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1038 for January 7th, 2024. Coming up in a few minutes.
When you're growing a company and thinking about potentially joining another team, you've got to choose wisely. And I really feel between the people, between what's available to us, not just from a stocking standpoint, but from a financial support standpoint and a team support standpoint, it really seemed to be the smart move for us, and they seem to feel the same.
The week's big news story was the acquisition of Single Cask Nation by the Artisanal Spirits Company, the parent company of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. I'll talk with Single Cask Nation founders Joshua Hatton and Jason Johnstone-Yellin on this week's WhiskyCast In-Depth. I'll also have the What I'm Tasting This Week department, Behind the Label, and much more. The news is next on this week's WhiskyCast.
And now, a message from Robin Redbreast. The average college basketball power forward is 6'9", which, according to my rough calculations, is 16.5 times my height. I'll stick to aimlessly pottering around in back gardens. Proud sponsor of WhiskyCast. Redbreast. Pass it on.
Greetings, everyone. It's Gabriel Cardarello with Jewers, and I have big news. Jewers is about to unveil the first chapter of a 4-part collector series dedicated to honoring the most famous whiskey-producing regions of Scotland. More on that in a bit.
Let's get started with the week's news. It's brought to you by the Dalmore. As I mentioned a minute ago, the Artisanal Spirits Company's purchase of the independent bottler Single Cask Nation leads the week's news. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. Founders Joshua Hatton and Jason Johnstone-Yellin will continue to run the business, but former Westland Distillery executive Steve Hawley is joining the team to support SCN's business operations. Once again, we'll hear from Joshua and Jason in a few minutes on WhiskyCast In-Depth. The first week of the new year was a bit light on news otherwise. There's new life being pumped into an old distillery, though. The Colburn Distillery site near Elgin has been closed since 1985, and the warehouses have been used for maturing stock for a number of distillers and independent bottlers. The Press and Journal reports D&M Winchester's plans are to turn an unused building at the site into a bistro in time for this summer's tourist season, with a goal of creating a destination resort at the site over the next few years. There are also plans to get the distillery itself back up and running by next year. The John Barleycorn Awards announced its 2023 year-end winners this week, pitting winners of the spring competition against winners of the fall awards. Heaven Hill was named Large Distiller of the Year, while Iowa's Cedar Ridge Distillery was named Small Distiller of the Year. Rocktown Distillery in Little Rock, Arkansas was named the Company to Watch, while 15 Stars was named Blender of the Year. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch B523 was named the best bourbon, while Rocktown's Column Still Collection Single Barrel Bourbon was named Best Single Barrel Bourbon or Tennessee Whiskey of the Year. Peerless Distilling's Small Batch Rye was named Best Rye Whiskey, and A.M. Scott Distillery's Barrel Proof Rye was named Best Single Barrel Rye. Cedar Ridge's Quintessential First Fill Sherry Cask was named Best American Single Malt. Redbreast 12-year-old cask strength was named Best Irish Whiskey. 15 Stars Sherry Cask Finish was named the Best American Whiskey. And Chivas Regal 15 was named the Best Scotch Whiskey. You'll find a link to the complete list of award winners in the show notes for this episode at whiskycast.com. In other news, country music singer Chris Stapleton has joined up with Sazerac to release that company's first celebrity whiskey. Stapleton collaborated with Buffalo Trace Master distiller Harlan Wheatley to create Traveler Whiskey Blend No. 40. It'll be available throughout the U.S. with a recommended retail price of $39.99 a bottle. And Heaven Hill did not wait long to release this year's first batch of Larceny Barrel Proof. Batch A124 is an uncut small batch of wheated bourbon, bottled at 62.1% ABV. It carries a recommended retail price of $64.99 a bottle. I'll have my tasting notes for it later on. You can keep up with the latest whiskey news all week long at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. The news is brought to you by the Dalmore.
Hello, Richard Patterson here, Master Distiller, Master Blender for the Dalmore. You know, whenever the team and I are in the world sharing our exceptional single malt, we like to keep in touch with Mark Gillespie and the latest news from WhiskyCast.
Let's open up the calendar now and check on upcoming whiskey events around the world. The Harrow Whiskey Festival is this Friday and Saturday at the Grimsdyke Hotel in London. The Arctic Whiskey Festival is Saturday in Tromsø, Norway. The Edmonton MS Whiskey Festival is January 17th in Edmonton, Alberta, followed the next night by the Calgary MS Whiskey Festival in Calgary. That same night also brings the start of the Victoria Whiskey Festival in Victoria, British Columbia, which runs through the 21st. BourbonCon takes place on the 19th and 20th in Lexington, Kentucky. The Nth Bermuda runs from January 25th through the 29th. The Kensington Wine Market in Calgary has its annual Burns Bash Whiskey Festival coming up on the 26th. And the Whiskey Exchange hosts Wild Turkey's Bruce Russell for a tasting on January 31st at its Great Portland Street store in London. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendar at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app.
At Dewar's, we are gearing up to unveil a prestigious 4-part collector series of exceptionally high-end blended malts. The first gem in this collection, none other than the extraordinary Dewar's Double Double 37-year-old, a blended malt that is nothing short of remarkable. The Double Double 37-year-old undergoes Dewar's cutting-edge 4-stage aging process, meticulously designed to draw out the essence of whiskey barrels dating back to the late 80s. The result? An impeccable balance and a level of smoothness that is off the charts. To pay homage to the Speyside whiskey producing region, it gets an extra tip of the hat with a finishing process resting in Oloroso sherry casks that once cradled the prestigious Altmore single malt whiskey. As for the taste adventure, brace yourself for captivating notes that include the warmth of cinnamon, the velvety sweetness of heather honey, succulent juiciness of peaches, zesty pops of orange peel, and a decadent shower of brown sugar. And let me be clear, I'm merely giving you a glimpse of the sensational flavor adventure this whiskey has in store. This exceptional whiskey, though, is a rare find, so stay vigilant and find it at a store near you.
WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Mortlock and the Classic Malts lineup. Our top story this week was the acquisition of Single Cask Nation by Scotland-based Artisanal Spirits Company, which also owns the Scotch Malt Whisky Society and the J.G. Thompson Independent Bottling brand. Joshua Hatton and Jason Johnstone-Yellin founded Single Cask Nation as an offshoot of their Jewish whiskey company in 2011 and now have a following of around 10,000 whiskey lovers in 8 countries around the world. The two are also known for their One Nation Under Whiskey podcast series. I got Joshua and Jason on a Zoom call after the announcement. I guess the obvious question is, why sell now?
Well, hello, Mark. Nice to see you too.
Yeah, it's a good question. Would you like to go first, Jason, or shall I?
I would love to hear your answer on this and see what I can say.
Well, you know, if we're being very honest, supply for stock has been low, getting lower. The cost of stock has gone high and even higher. And for a small company like ours, who we don't necessarily spot buy, but we never sit on a huge stock of casks, you know, just enough that's been getting us by the past 13 years or so, or going on 13 years. And joining Artisanal Spirits Company gives us access to more distilleries, more stock, different types of spirit as well. Getting to visit them this past September and tasting through some of what's in their inventory has been pretty amazing because it's quite stunning. And so that played a part of it. Another part is the people. It's interesting when you go and visit the folks at Artisanal, you realize, oh, these are people that we've been in circles with for years. Wouldn't it be nice to be in an inner circle with them? And it's a tough thing when you're growing a company and thinking about potentially joining another team. You've got to choose wisely. And I really feel between the people, between what's available to us, not just from a stocking standpoint, but from a financial support standpoint and a team support standpoint, it really seemed to be the smart move for us, and they seem to feel the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely echo what Joshua is saying there. There's also this sense of where does your brand go next? And there was a part of this endeavor was creating a brand. Part of it was growing the brand. And then the part that we've reached is, and where do you go now? We brought in Jess Lomas, we expanded globally, we brought in Elijah Ammon, we worked on expanding across the US and brought in a cask pick program for retailers and distributors. There's that next wave of how do you take it further than that? And the assistance of Artisanal is going to help us blow the doors off, which is hugely exciting. And I think that's the real answer to why now. It was the right time. It's absolutely, we're standing on the doorstep of SCN's future, and Artisanal will help us walk through that door.
There you go.
With the problems that you mentioned, Joshua, with getting new casks and getting supply, how much of that was the driving force in all this? Explain sort of what kind of problems you guys had been having in terms of sourcing casks.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know if I can attach a number or percentage to it. It surely was a factor. The key thing is you've got a growing number of independent bottlers that seems to continue to grow. You've got this seemingly unending growth in cask investment, which is quite scary and has definitely kicked up the cost of casks because, many brokers, you could sell a cask to an independent bottler and make a little bit of cash, or you could sell a cask to an investor and make a lot of bit of cash. So that definitely played a part in cost. And then, it's important, I think, to consider emerging markets as well. It's obvious that the Scotch whiskey industry as a whole would really grow in an important way if markets like the BRIC companies, like if India dropped tariffs, then more product can go into that country. So you've got large players that are releasing a little less stock just in case certain markets open up. And so it's a bit of supply and demand. It's a bit of cost going up because of these investment schemes. We've been lucky in that we've been able to grow quite successfully outside of Scotch whiskey and partner with distilleries in from Israel and in India and Wales and England and so on, and get into rums as well. So, we've had to pivot here and there to broaden our own portfolio and what we've been able to bottle and to deliver to our consumers in the face of this ever increasing difficulty of getting access to Scotch whiskey.
Jason?
I think you're right at the end there, Joshua, to mention Scotch whiskey. The opportunities that exist globally are expanding every single day. And so while, yes, Scotch remains king, and I'm a very proud Scotsman, sitting in front of you today, Mark, but we shouldn't turn our backs on the rest of the world. We should especially pay attention to this burgeoning American single malt whiskey market. Once this ratification comes through, American single malt whiskey is going to go into the stratosphere as well. So yeah, there are difficulties. There are also opportunities, and difficulties with Scotch, but opportunities globally that we're very, very excited about, and especially in America.
The key question that some folks started asking as soon as this deal was announced, does this include your podcast?
I haven't been asked that one yet. That's brilliant. I hadn't heard that. It does. Yes, that is one of the components acquired by ASC. And so One Nation Under Whiskey will continue. There is no doubt about that. It might, change in subtle ways or adapt, evolve in certain subtle ways. But yeah, we're still free to interview people, have chats with them, tell terrible jokes. So yeah, that's great. Thanks for bringing that up, Mark. That's awesome. Cheers,
nothing will change there with the terrible jokes, Jason.
While we're on the subject, actually, Whiskey Geek Tours and the Whiskey Jubilees were also part of the acquisition. So any future for tours or festivals lie in the hands of ASC, and we remain fully in charge of those conversations with ASC as well.
And you're retaining essentially full control over Single Cask Nation in terms of day-to-day management, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think that's an important point to stress there, is that we remain in full control of all of those aspects. The idea was they purchased us because they thought we were doing things the correct way and don't really want to step on our toes. But they're giving us the reins. Yes, they may have One Nation Under Whiskey, but we retain creative control over that podcast and creative control over our dick jokes. We retain control over the casks we select, as well as, if we work on finishing programs or what have you. The whiskeys are ours to bottle, and we will remain behind every aspect of that. Yeah.
And Jess Lomas remains in-house as well.
100%.
So everything that Jess has been building since 2019 will remain in place and be grown in 2024 as well. So she will be very much on the Single Cask Nation side of things. And then we've got the addition of Steve Hawley, who will be on the ASC side of things. And the four of us will work globally to see what we can do with Single Cask Nation.
I was just about to ask what Steve brings to the table.
Yeah. Joshua?
Yeah, well, he will be, when we started Single Cask Nation, it was Jason and I to run every aspect of it, from CEO down to brand ambassador. And not to say brand ambassador is at the bottom of that totem pole, but to give you an idea of the spectrum. Having Steve on board allows us to be in front of people more, allows us to focus on the liquid going in the bottle. He's going to be focused on the back office side of things and ensuring everything's running smoothly on the back end while we continue being customer focused, consumer focused.
Well, and look at the work that he put in during his time at Westland, along with Matt Hoffman and the team up there. Look at what he's done in his time as president of the I'm going to get my acronym in the wrong direction. American Single Malt Whisky Commission.
That's
Am I still sharp? Okay.
Hey.
Okay, I didn't want to get that one wrong. So look at the work he's done there as well. Look at the work he's done to try and ratify this category. He's proven himself time and time again. The fact that we get to work closely with him is incredibly exciting. And even during our time in negotiations with ASC, I don't think we get it across the finish line without Steve. Without Steve's involvement, his attention to detail is formidable, as is his work ethic. So if he could calm down his work ethic just a little, that would be very helpful. He's on the slopes right now, so I feel safe saying this.
Yeah,
while he's got skis on his feet.
and just to add to what I was saying before about, joining the right team with the right people, Steve Hawley has been a supporter of Single Cask Nation from day one.
Yeah.
Westland was one of the first distilleries that we worked with and continued to work with through to this day, even though he's not there. And so being able to work side by side with him is nice, because we've grown in friendship, and now we can grow in business together, which is very cool.
You sound like you're excited about this and about the future going forward.
I'm glad. I'm very, very glad. It's yeah, there's a sense today of corporate support. And I know for so many people in this industry, it's easy to start out with corporate support and then want to prove yourself individually. And we see it all the time. Many, many brand ambassadors who put blood, sweat, and tears into growing brands think, well, this is a thankless corporation, and if I've got these skills, I'm going to go do this for my own self. And we've come from the other direction, where we've been out there by ourselves. We've had days where we've just simply looked at each other, and said, what are we going to do next? Where is the support going to come from next? And honestly, as we traverse this next stage of Single Cask Nation, knowing that we have Steve, for instance, as a support, knowing that we've got people who Jess can ask questions of as she's going global, knowing that there's an entire team sitting in Edinburgh who have our best interests at heart, it is exciting. I really look at this now as, how good can this be? Not how do we get to next year, or how do we do the next 3 or 5 years, but what can we really establish with Single Cask Nation? What distillery stories can we share as we go forward with Single Cask Nation? And what new drinkers can we meet along the way and get them excited and get them passionate and say, yeah, Scotch is brilliant. There's no doubt about that. But there's a bunch of other really cool, exciting drinks to discover. Let's get into the business of that. And yeah, that's my passion. That's Joshua's passion. I'm sure that's your passion, Mark. Like that's what we're about, telling those stories and sharing those drams. So yeah, I'm glad we sound excited, because I definitely am, and I'm sure Joshua is too.
Yes, I am.
You
said all the words. I don't need to say anymore.
So who gets to decide on a cask between Single Cask Nation and the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, if both of you want the same cask?
That's
a good one.
That's a very good one. I like that twist at the end. Yeah, the SMWS panel will remain what it is, and we won't have involvement in any of those cask selections. Jason and I will remain selecting our cask, though Jess does help us in cask selection as well. I think it's really important to put that out there too. I hope we don't get to a point where we're, fighting over this cask or the other. ASC seems to have a good inventory where there's enough to spread the love around. And hey, if I'm being honest, I think one of the great things about independent bottlers is that each company comes to the table with a different set of taste buds, and what we might say yes to, they might not say yes to, right? And so I think it'll be far more harmonious. I don't think we'll have to break down to arm wrestles or fight over any casks.
Yeah, and I think the good news is here, they're all ASC's casks. And while we're walking into a situation where inventory has already been built, we will also be part of cask acquisition going forward and spirit acquisition going forward. So there will be SMWS casks that are theirs. There will be SCN casks that are ours. And then there'll be ongoing conversations about ASC casks and how do those get allotted to the sister brands. So there's definitely conversation going forth. I like Joshua's point where the way SNWS committee selects may very well be different from how SCN selects. And we'll have those conversations as we go forward. We're sitting here on day 0 of this, and so we'll see. There's a lot of Kalila in the world. I don't think we need to fight over Kalila. I think there's plenty to be sharing.
How did the deal come about? Did they approach you? Did you approach them? What happened?
So without going into too many details on this part, we were introduced by a mutual friend. There was a party we were talking to and a party they were talking to about 2 separate projects. And it came about that some of the things Joshua and I talked about looking for going forward, Artisanal were also looking for going forward. And it sounded like through this mutual acquaintance that there may be a conversation worth having there. And so we just had a simple introductory meeting. We talked about our philosophy. They talked about their philosophy. And there started to be points in common that we thought we could benefit from the relationship. They thought they could benefit from the relationship. And, the way they've always talked about their society and the way we've always talked about the nation, we think about whiskey drinkers in very similar ways. And we think about sharing whiskey in very similar ways. And when I'm saying whiskey, I'm also thinking rum, and I'm thinking mezcal and cognac. I'm thinking drinks, but we're on WhiskyCast, so let's stick to whiskey. But we think of it in similar ways, and we think of sharing it in similar ways. And so it seemed like a great opportunity in both directions from the beginning. And then we started hammering it out, and it didn't come together in a day, a week, or a month, but it came together, and we sit here today with something really exciting.
Thanks to Jason Johnstone-Yellin and Joshua Hatton for spending some time with us this week on WhiskyCast In-Depth. Next time around, I'll sit down with New Middleton Distillery Master Blender Dave McCabe for a chat. WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Mortlach, whiskey's best-kept secret. Hidden away for decades in some of the world's most famous Scotch whiskies, comes a single malt inspired by an original for a fortunate few. Discover the entire Mortlach lineup at malts.com. Let's start off the What I'm Tasting This Week department with a couple of recent Single Cask Nation bottlings, starting with their bottling of a 2010 Dalhousie Single Cask. This 13-year-old whiskey comes from our first fill sherry barrel and was bottled at 54.3% ABV. The nose has touches of toffee, fudge, figs, and subtle spices. The taste starts off with figs, dates, and toffee, while a white pepper spiciness comes alive slowly and leads through the long finish. I'm scoring the Single Cask Nation Dalhousie 2010 Single Malt a 91. Single Cask Nation bottles more than just single malts, as evidenced by this 26-year-old Invergordon single grain cask from 1997. It's a refill hogshead cask bottled at 53.4% ABV. The nose has touches of honey, dried flowers, and butterscotch. The taste has notes of licorice, chocolate, allspice, honey, dried flowers, butterscotch, and a touch of oak, while the finish has lingering touches of allspice and honey in a good balance. I'm scoring the Single Cask Nation 1997 Invergordon Single Grain a 92. Now, my first tasting note of the year was for Heaven Hill's Old Fitzgerald Bottled in Bond Fall 2023 edition. This one was distilled in the fall of 2015, making it an 8-year-old bourbon. And, of course, it's bottled at 50% ABV. The nose has notes of caramel, leather, and toffee, while the taste has black pepper, clove, and allspice, balanced with toffee, caramel, and a hint of honey. The finish is long, dry, and spicy, and I'm scoring the Old Fitzgerald Bottled in Bond 2023 fall release a 92. I mentioned the first Larceny barrel proof release of 2024 during the news, and it was the first sample delivered in the new year. It's a wheated bourbon bottled at 62.1% ABV, and the nose has touches of caramel, leather, tobacco, and honey. The taste is thick and chewy with black pepper, chili powder, and allspice notes on top of caramel, honey, and leather. The finish has long, lingering spices with a hint of honey, and I'm scoring batch A124 of Larceny Barrel Proof a 92. I'll be adding these tasting notes to our searchable list of more than 3,600 different whiskeys from all over the world. Check it out this week at WhiskyCast.com.
And now, a message from Robin Redbreast.
So, in Spain, they call Redbreast Petit Roco. It's me, but a touch more exotic. Kind of like a Redbreast PX edition. Finished in Pedro Jimenez casks, adding a velvety and decadent dimension. You know, I won't lie. A climate like this makes me wish I was a migratory bird.
Proud sponsor of WhiskyCast. Redbreast. Pass it on.
Let's open up the inbox and see what people are talking about this week. Our community segment is brought to you by Waterford Whiskey. Still going through some of your first drams of 2024. Scott Rogers posted this from Wisconsin in the WhiskyCast community app. First dram of 24 for me is a port finish Yorkshire whiskey from Filey Bay. Been waiting on this bottle for a while. English and Welsh whiskeys were the big aha breakthroughs for me in 2023, though an Indian single malt was the surprise standout from my Whiskey Club's Advent calendar last month. Law School Drunk added this. First dram of 2024 is Kilhoman's Mackere Bay that I just opened. Never had any Kilhoman before because of their high prices for NAS. Got this one at cost from a liquor store manager with whom I'm friendly. It sure helps to have friends at the local liquor store. And Rick at the Whiskey Zone posted this in the app. My first dram of the year is a Woodrow's of Edinburgh cask strength 10-year-old Bunnahabhain Staucha, courtesy of my friend James DiGiulio, who graciously gifted me these lovely drams. Thanks, James. Thanks for sharing, James. If you have something you'd like to share with whiskey lovers around the world, download the WhiskyCast community app from the iOS or Android app stores and join the conversation. You can also reach us on X, Threads, Facebook, and Instagram at WhiskyCast. The email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Our community segment is presented by Waterford Whiskey on the web at waterfordwhiskey.com.
Trevor Harris, Alan Ross and Amy Jackson, Pat and Dennis Booth, Alan Mooney, John MacDonald. Just a few of the growers who help to make us the biggest distillers of organic whiskey in the world. Waterford Whiskey, the most naturally flavoursome single malt.
Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. Distilleries in Scotland alone produce around 1 million litres of wastewater each year, and now researchers at Heriot-Watt University have figured out a way to turn that waste into something useful, green hydrogen, produced from a renewable resource. Until now, green hydrogen has required the use of fresh water because the electrolyzers that convert water into hydrogen and oxygen don't work well with wastewater because of all the extra stuff that's in that water. The Heriot-Watt team has developed a nanoscale material made of nickel selenide that allows distillery wastewater to be used to make green hydrogen instead of fresh water. The nanoparticle has been shown to produce similar or even slightly higher quantities of green hydrogen compared to current methods. The research team is now trying to scale up their prototype to increase production of the nanoparticles. They're also analyzing distillery wastewater to see if other valuable materials can be extracted from the water, such as copper and selenium. If you have something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this week's episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you'll find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, the whiskey photo of the week, and, of course, a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Get in touch with us on X, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, or you can use the WhiskyCast community app. Download it today from the iOS or Google App Stores. Our email address is comments@whiskycast.com.
Dewar's Double Double 37-year-old blended malt whiskey is a true collector's treasure, a rarity worth hunting for and cherishing, perhaps sharing with the lucky few. Please drink responsibly. Copyright 2023, Dewar's Blended Scotch Whisky, 48% alcohol by volume.
And now, a message from Robin Redbreast.
Ever go out drinking with a peacock? Always the same. Few too many, tail feathers come out, drinks get knocked over, bartender's not happy, night's over before it started. All I'm saying is, don't be the peacock in your group.
Proud sponsor of WhiskyCast. Redbreast. Pass it on.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2024, and comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.